Hi guys, I'm going to show you how to do a coolant change on a 2.2 i-CDTi Accord. I'm sure it'll be the same on Civics, FRV, CRVs or any of the things that the N22A1 was in. So let's get started. Right, okay, so to find your petcock or your drain, come underneath the car and then look up. So we're underneath the car here. You don't have to take off the under tray or anything like that. Right, so we're underneath the car now and that's your front jacking point. If you can see there, see that white thing there? If you unscrew that gently, see where that little hole is? Your coolant should start coming out of there. Okay. Right, okay, so once your coolant's coming out and it's actually going in the bucket, make sure you don't miss like this. To make it drain out faster, just take the radiator cap off. So as you take that off, that'll let air into the system and that'll pull the rest out. So as you can probably hear now, that's gushing out. I wouldn't recommend you take the drain plug fully out. I would just recommend personally that you just unscrew it a little bit. There's a little hole so it'll go down. If you unscrew it fully, it'll come out rather than down. So when you're bleeding your engine, still draining yet. So if you obviously pop the radiator cap, there is a drain, a bleed valve there. You can just use like a square drive for that. I don't think that one's that much use because it's just next to the radiator cap. You can take that off, and there's one right in there as well. Can you see that? So if you take off the engine cover and then you come over the top and it's just there, if you undo that, that'll let kind of air into the engine block, and then when you're filling it back up, wait till you're getting like a steady stream of coolant coming out of that, and then you can close it back up. Okay, so I've just closed the drain valve on that now. Like I says, the radiator cap's off here and this bleed valve here is open. So we're going to start filling up with coolant. Before you start filling up with coolant though, you can use whatever coolant you want, I mean so long as it's compatible with the car, but I personally recommend just going with the Honda OEM stuff. You'll know it'll work, it's not that expensive, so just use that. You got it? I'll take the sound out of it anyway, so it's fine. Right, so once it's full, you can start your car, and then the water pump should obviously take some of that up, so we'll start the car. I've already started it once, so yeah, and you. See that starting to go down? Hi guys, it's Ingenium. My PC broke recently, and when it did, it corrupted some files and I lost some files. So I'm just adding some information here. So before you add your coolant, make sure you close the petcock or the drain plug in the opposite way that you opened it. Obviously, make sure that it's fully closed. Don't go crazy on it. Don't go pliers or vice grips or anything. It's made of plastic. It'll probably be fairly brittle as well. Hand tight's fine, but make sure you close that before you add any coolant. So whilst you're waiting on your car to heat up as well, put the coolant that you got from your waste bucket into your empty coolant container. Don't chuck it down the drain, or chuck it about. Apparently if cats and dogs eat this they'll die, or squirrels or deers. You don't want that. Put it back in there, put a lid on it, give it to your council and they'll sort it out. But not only obviously should you be doing that because for the environment, but if you see how much you put in here into there, if you put this back into there, then you'll see how much coolant you've actually put into the car. Okay, quick edit. So before you start actually bleeding the car, get in the car, turn it onto the second click, turn your heaters on to high or as high as temperature it'll go, and turn your fans as low as they'll go or even off. That'll just make sure that your heater cord's kind of getting the thingy through it as well. The proper way you meant to bleed it is, or should I say the Honda way you meant to bleed it is, the bleeder on top of the engine, it looks like a bleed nipple from a caliper. That's because you're technically meant to put a small hose on that and then have that kind of going back into the top of the radiator or your funnel or whatever. I found that way wasn't necessary. I didn't have a small bit of hose anyway, but I did uncrack it and I didn't get anything out. But what I would recommend is that just when you take it out for a proper drive, as in like your commute or whatever like that, I drive about half an hour to an hour a day. If it drops slightly, that's absolutely fine. Just top it back up. Just keep an eye on your temperatures. The temperature on the dashboard isn't reliable. Again, if you've got an OBD2 reader or a Bluetooth one, just keep an eye on your temperatures. Make sure they're not going above 80 degrees. Make sure you're not getting any temperature spikes, stuff like that. Try and run your heater as well, because that'll kind of get your coolant moving, and it'll bleed out the heater core if needed, and then that's moving the fluid. Ideally, you just want the fluid to be moving, and then that way it'll kind of burp out the fluid as such. And then once cool, don't ever add in coolant when it's hot, but once it's cool, open the cap. If that level's dropped, that means you expelled air and it's been replaced with coolant, so then top it up again to the max again, drive around for however long you need. So let's just say you are driving to work, don't check it as soon as you stop the car, check it the day after or later on in the day once it's cool. And if that coolant's dropped again, then you know it's expelled air. You basically just got to do that for the next couple of days, and that'll be your car bled. So we got the car up to temperature. It's really handy to have an OBD2 reader, a Bluetooth one especially. You can use like an app like Torque. But the operating temperature for these cars is between 78 and 77 degrees. Just make sure it doesn't get any higher than 80 degrees depending on how hot your climate is. So we did that. We opened up the bleeder valve there. Nothing came out, so we closed it again. And we ran it up to temperature whilst it's hot. Make sure you get your heater on. As you can see, that coolant level's gone down. Just make sure you're not running your car to overheating, or you're running it kind of too low. So what to do is, like I said, just get your car up to temperature, drive it about, because these diesels, when you idle them, they won't usually get up to temperature. Take some coolant with you when you're out and about, and make sure your car's just not getting overly hot, and just top it up every time you kind of drive about. That's the kind of quickest way, in my opinion, to bleed it. You can like leave it to bleed, idling, and then do all that sort of stuff, but this is just as fast. So if your car's in maybe a bit better condition than mine, you might be able to see here where the minimum and maximum markers are. Don't mind that smoke, that's because I dropped a bit of coolant. But mine's yellow to the fact that I can't see it, but you can usually kind of see it from peering in. So if I take this out here, I can kind of see the level there. Just make sure it's somewhere between your minimum and maximum. You put it on your maximum, it's usually easier. So like I said, you can drive it about, and then the next day just check your coolant. Just do that for the next couple of days. Make sure you got hot air coming out, and that way you won't have any problems bleeding it. So if you need a hand or anything, just give me a message or leave a comment. Cheers.